So they could be doing all that on the backside.
Yes.
I guess you know how they are with their diversions and little tactics and everything else. That wouldn't surprise me.
And surprisingly, the exit lanes for the Nazis were open until the very, very last days of the war through Denmark and Norway. They didn't give up those territories to the very end.
Well, I think everything he did on his rise to power is the exact same thing that Führer Bush is doing with the Homeland Gestapo, the Homeland Security. Every one of the agencies he's put in place were agencies that Hitler had in place.
There's something rather interesting, too, about that Reichstag fire that Hitler used as an excuse to get his Enabling Act passed. They blamed it on a foreigner, a fellow named Marinus van der Lubbe, and he was executed the next year. There's a strange little factoid about Mr. van der Lubbe's death, and that is he was beheaded by a guillotine, and he was being held in a prison in Saxony in Germany, and they were the only area in Germany at that time that beheaded people by guillotine. And that was in 1934.
Well, it's interesting, when you look at he had his own little 911.
Yes.
Because the trade towers were planned and implemented by the government so they could have another Pearl Harbor to get in the Middle East. They needed a war. They needed something to get in the Middle East, and so they planned and implemented that. And I don't know why anybody will ever confront and answer the question why the Air Force was ordered to stand down that morning. No one will answer it. Cheney was in NORAD. Why did he order the Air Force to stand down? So many questions that they won't answer. And they say, oh, you're conspiracy nuts. Well, what's a conspiracy? It's questions that aren't being answered.
No, and they'll certainly never be addressed in the mainstream press or...
Yeah, well, WingTV.net is putting on a series called 911 on Trial. And I've watched 3 of them so far. It's really good. People ought to go to WingTV.net. You can watch it. They've also got an online video you can watch called The New World Order Exposed. Because everything comes in a circle. I've been talking about, things that happened pre-Adamic civilization, the same thing that's happening today. And everything happens in circles. And Hitler was their dry run. And now we've got their final run with their second Hitler, which is Bush. Prescott Bush financed Adolf Hitler. And now all the little Satan freaks are financing George W. Bush. So it's interesting. Our country is becoming the one we fought.
It's interesting, too, that Mr. Hitler and Mr. Stalin were in power. There were a lot of people who supported them wholeheartedly and actually enjoyed that form of government. And I think with the passing of time, there are more American citizens who would, surprisingly, rather welcome a totalitarian form of government.
Well, because the hideous side is never told. The hideous side is always suppressed. As Hitler and the Edomite Jews over there were killing off the Torah-believing Jews, which is the whole reason for the Holocaust, because the Edomite Jews wanted to kill off the real ones. Stalin was killing off 40 million Christians. And so it was a total war on both sides against the bride of Christ, the church, his people. And nobody says anything about it.
No. Everybody
sticks to the textbook history, versions of it. And if you go back and look, they call it the Great Famine that killed all those people in Russia, but there was 40 million believers killed.
Yes.
And then the whole reason for the Holocaust was so that the Torah-believing Jews were killed, so the Edomites could then get their own nation in Israel and be in control of it. And that's how we have Zionism there today. And so it's always just been a war against God's people on this earth. Everything's masked by politics, but it's a war against His people.
It is a shame that the true history of the 30s and 40s and the things that affected tens of millions of people simply aren't taught in the schools or ever discussed.
Yeah, everything's rewritten, swept under the rug. Well, I'm going to get ready to wrap up the show. Any parting thoughts, John?
No, just thoroughly enjoying your show, and thank you for the excellent information.
All right. Well, thanks for calling in.
Okay.
Bye-bye. That wraps up this show, folks. Next week will be listener call-in. Get back on some call-ins next week. Wanted to spend these last 2 weeks just getting out some information, getting them on record, so you can go to the websites and listen to them. You know, we knew these times were coming. We knew the days were ending. You can jump to the back of the book, and you can see who wins. You know, we might always be at a war against Satan and his forces, and it's going to get intense. But you can jump to the back and see that it's the Lord who wins. Satan might win a few battles in the meantime, but the Lord will win the war. The created can never be greater than the Creator. And that's what it's going to come down to. Who are you going to worship in these last days? The created being or the Creator himself? And so it's going to come down to a war for the souls of every person on this planet and choosing their loyalty between Satan and the Lord, the real one. Till next week, everybody, agape love to you all. God bless.
Lazarus became with a ragtag band to bring a revolution. Some would make him king, others couldn't stand for that. The cross was a solution, but he rose again. Wise men follow him, but he rose again. Wise men follow him. Thank God for the renegade and the lions they lead. For the head of their train, without the renegade, Lord knows where we see. When it comes to heroes, renegades are fine. Another ragtag band declaring independence. Lay their bodies down on a bloody
watching you grow older.
Liberty of their descendants.
Happy birthday from Buzzhouse.
Free today, thanks to the renegades. Afraid today, thank God for the renegades. But the lives they lead are ahead of their time. Without the renegades, Lord knows where we be. When it comes to heroes, renegades are fine. Around the renegades in the world today. Who are the renegades in the world today? Thank God for the renegades and the lives they lead far ahead of their time. Without the renegades, Lord knows where we. When it comes to heroes, renegades are mine. When it comes to heroes, renegades are mine.